Welcome to the LA City Section Baseball Wrap-Up Podcast. Connor Morissette and Alex Scar. We're going to break down the two championship games from Dodger Stadium. But before, we want to tell you about a video that we'll have on tap in maybe a couple days, but maybe a couple weeks. Our final top 10 will be out soon, and we're going to put together a Los Angeles City Section Futures team. So look out for that. Majority freshmen, sophomores. Yep. And then we'll put that out in a video. But today, break down those two games and then do an all-city section team, just the best of the best. So does that sound good to you, Alex?
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
All right, so you were at the two championship games at Dodger Stadium. In the Division I game, Verdugo Hills comes back and beats Carson with some seventh-inning magic from Matt Goki, ties the game, and then they win in extra innings. But we saw two comebacks in these Dodger Stadium games. Verdugo Hills got the first one.
Yeah, Verdugo Hills, they win this one 4-2 in 9 innings. One of the best games I've seen, and Verdugo was so pumped, man. Their fans were there. The whole team was absolutely jacked up the whole game. They were cheering every single time after each inning. They were really, really excited to be there, and the game was a treat. I mean, we saw really good pitching out of Bellinger, and shout out to Nick Rodriguez. You and I talked about it. Nick Matsumoto's the guy. We thought that was their #1 pitcher. He was unavailable. Who do they turn to in the game, the final game, the game? Who do they give the ball to? They give it to Nick Rodriguez, and he turned in a stellar start, really helped out and shut down that Carson Colts offense. So really a big hat tip there to him. Matt Goki, as you mentioned, having that big knock. Dakota Gray coming and scoring on a wild pitch to break the tie in extras. Charlie Roca just being Charlie Roca. Even though he wasn't much of a batted ball threat, they still walked him 3 times. He came up to bat. They didn't want anything to do with him. Just put him on base. So all the big guys there at Verdugo really doing their job. And for Carson, tough loss.
Yeah, I saw Rodriguez pitch against Grant, and he got guys out, but that's Grant, not the best team.
True. You don't know what you're going to get.
In the East Valley League. So for him to do that against Carson was incredible. And a quick note on Carson, great season from them. Yeah, they came up short in the championship, but let's be honest, for the last few years, they have not been very good. What is his 4th or 5th coach in that amount of years?
5th coach in 5 years, yeah.
So it looks like they've righted the ship. They're going to return a lot of guys. They'll be a threat next year. And I know they were slighted by not making the Open Division. I think they'll make the Open Division next year, them and Banning from the Marine League.
Yeah, there's still a lot of good juniors, as you mentioned. A lot of guys coming back for their senior season there at Carson. And for the coach to really turn that program around where you have such high turnover and there's just no consistency when coaches leave. You know, practice times change and things change. All kinds of different things kind of go awry. When you can have the same coach in place for a couple of years, that's when you build a program. I think Carson's really going to kind of step up. They're going to be that Marine League threat that we kind of expected them to be this year. And if they're right, like you're saying, if they were pissed about missing Open, well, watch out for next year. I think they'll be there.
And then in the Open Division, it looked like El Camino Real was going to win a City Section Championship, but Birmingham wins after El Camino Real made a couple of errors down the stretch. They were up 3-0 in the 6th, I believe, and then Birmingham goes on to win 4-3. So what happened? What did you see in that one? And congrats to Birmingham.
Well, you always want to give credit to the team that wins because Birmingham, they did not give up, but El Camino, they kicked this one away. It's tough to see. They were leading this game all the way through, and then just kind of a couple of errors, some throwing errors, some hit batters, a couple of walks, and then some timely hitting there from Birmingham really kind of swung the advantage. But you got to remember, Birmingham had 2 hits in the 5th inning. Yeah. Adam Christopher shut them down. He allowed a couple of walks, but only a couple of hits. They didn't really have any threat going at all. He got the better of Johnny Tincher a couple of times. So for all intents and purposes, El Camino looked like they were going to finish this game just like they started it, finish it nice and hot. Fortunately, a couple of errors, a couple of miscues led to some Birmingham opportunities, and they capitalized. Andrew Acosta with a huge 2 RBI knock that really kind of broke that game open. And shout out to Birmingham. I mean, it's tough. I know it's the biggest stage, but even then, when you're losing a game, sometimes it's difficult to stay in it, to stay hot, to make sure that you keep the intensity up. I think DJ Virginia was a big part in that. He got the ball out of the bullpen. 11 scoreless outs, really kind of locked it down, made it possible for Birmingham to come back and really make sure that they had a shot to take this ball game, and they did. Shout out to them.
And remember, Virginia, when he pitched against El Camino Real in the regular season, he got roughed up
shelled,
a little bit. And in the playoffs, he hadn't really been pitching. So for him to get the ball in the crucial spot and come through, I'm sure he feels, A, fantastic, but B, kind of validated a little bit. Like, yeah, I am a good pitcher. I can do this.
Yeah, watch this. Give me the ball.
Exactly. And I'm glad that he was able to put that together, because I remember speaking to his mother quickly before the opening round for Birmingham of the Open Division playoffs. He knew he wasn't going to pitch. He was a little disappointed, so I'm glad that he got his chance.
Yeah, no, this was actually his first time getting the ball in the playoffs, and what a bigger spot. Dodger Stadium Mound in a tight ball game, a game that is going to be your last game of your high school career, so shout out to DJ. I spoke with him after the game. He had nothing but praise for the rest of his teammates, for his coaches. He was hyped up. I asked him, what's next for you? All he said was, I'm going to have a great weekend and party with my team. That's all he was concerned about. So, DJ Virginia, shout out to you and a shout out to the Patriots.
So that's what went down at Dodger Stadium. Let's take a look at our all-city section team. So the way Alex and I broke this down, we have 9 position players, a Cy Young Award winner, a bench which has some pitchers and some other players, and then a player of the year, which comes from one of the 9 position players, and this was the 2 of us. So if you have any gripes,
directed at him.
Yeah, you know who to take him to. This wasn't some big elaborate coaches voting. This was
our
Connor
eyeballs.
Morissette and Alex Carr. So again, if you have any complaints or if you're happy with what we did,
we're gonna hear it.
We're the ones responsible.
Now we're gonna hear it.
So let's start with our player of the year, and it's Charlie Roca from Verdugo Hills. When you lead LA in home runs, probably the only player who has potential to get drafted and make it to Major League Baseball. What he's been able to do at Verdugo Hills, I know he didn't get too many opportunities in that championship game, but he went out as a winner in Division I. He scored a very, very key run after getting walked one of those 3 times in that championship game. You know, what else to say about this kid? He's been fantastic all year. Defensively, he put on an absolute show at USC in the semifinal against Taft. Complete player.
Yeah, and one thing we want to kind of avoid, you don't want to hold the team against the kid, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might say Charlie Roca, he played in a league that wasn't that tough. He played for Verdugo Hills. Verdugo just won a Division I title, and Charlie Roca was legitimately the best player I saw all season. Toolsy as heck. I mean, the kid's got a fantastic throwing arm, really fluid over there at shortstop, really strong right-handed power swing. 14 bombs, yes, some of them came at Verdugo Hills, but the power was legit. I mean, he had a foul ball at Dodger Stadium in the championship game, and the crowd literally oohed and awed. It was a foul ball. He was just out in front of it, and it was just a little hooker into the the line, but still, he draws a show. It was a lot of fun to watch him all season. Charlie Roca, our shortstop for our all-city team and our player of the year.
And he's a player, just one other quick note, he'd make a play or he'd step into the batter's box, you'd get your cell phone out.
Oh, yeah, you watched him.
Watch.
Yeah, you wanted to see what was going to happen.
And as guys who cover the sport, Charlie was great to cover you. A lot of fun. So at catcher, Johnny Tincher from Birmingham. We talked millions, it seems like, of good catchers in the LA City section. What separates Johnny Tincher, a lot of these guys can hit. Tincher can hit just like everyone else, but defensively he was the best, so he gets the nod.
Yeah, catcher was our toughest choice. I thought there were 4 almost equally good catchers that we could have picked from. Johnny Tincher, for me, when it came to defense, the way that he calls the ball game, blocks the plate, and then that fantastic throwing arm, there's not a better defensive catcher in all of the LA City. No slight to Alex Malone. We're going to get to him in a second, but I think Johnny Tincher is all around the best catcher in the city. I can't wait to watch him next year. A little undersized for a catcher. I think he's only about 5'7" or so, but he's working with former minor leaguer Jeremy Rodriguez, who went to Crespi, my alma mater, so shout out to J-Rod over there. And I know J-Rod, he's a small guy too, but really, really fundamental with the mechanics of catching. Really good arm out of that kid too, so I know he's under some good tutelage. Johnny Tincher, all around the best catcher I saw all year.
Daniel Krasnick deserves a nod as well. He was someone we also considered at first base. You mentioned, we'll talk about him later. Here he is, Alex Malone over at Chatsworth. Great player, but Tincher edges him at the catcher spot. Malone plays first base, sometimes more of a catcher.
Yeah, more of a catcher.
But he needed to be on this list, so we slayed him at first base.
Yeah, we kind of had to stretch just a little bit to fit him in here, but he was the West Valley League MVP. You can't count that kid out. One of the prettiest left-handed swings in all of the city, so Alex Malone, as kind of Chatsworth went, he went, right? I mean, they kind of needed him to be the guy to get on base, drive runners in, and called a great ball guy behind the plate. It's tough that we had to pick one of these guys, but I'm glad we had a spot for Alex Malone.
At second base, Birmingham, second selection, it's Victor Villa, another really great player, and he's on the championship team, the Birmingham Patriots.
Yeah, championship team and an all-star for the city section against the southern section this Saturday, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Victor Villa really holding down that keystone position. The Birmingham just really had a really good defensive team all the way around. A lot of good second basemen. I know we have some arguments on our futures team, but for this all-city team, I thought Victor Villa just all in all played for one of the best teams and really kind of held down a really tough spot, so shout out to him.
Shortstop, Roca, he was our player of the year. We discussed him. So third base, out of Carson, Bellinger, another guy who, you know, you don't want to hold the team against him. He is a fantastic, fantastic player, and what we've seen from him this season has been a lot of fun to watch. Yeah,
Bellinger, also the quarterback there at Carson. He got the start in the Division I championship game, so the kid's an athlete. He's really going to kind of give you everything he's got. But at third base, what I saw really good reactions and a really sharp throwing arm. You got to have that over there at third base. You got to be able to defend your position, cover the right side or the left side rather, be able to throw a guy out when he bunts it over. So I was really impressed with just kind of how athletic he was. And third base, you see a lot of fluctuation. Guys move from shortstop to third, from second to third. You kind of bounce around. I saw play a really, really good third base, and he's our third baseman.
Looking at right field, we got Matt Bacon from Granada Hills, and the way we position the outfield. Bacon really played center all year, but we were just looking at outfielders because this is the kind of...
It's kind of tough.
These are the spots where guys can move around. So we have Matt Bacon there, and great hitter. That's what put him in this discussion. Batting fourth for Granada, hit some home runs. I saw him launch one against Taft. Outfielder who really impressed me this year, and he gets the nod there.
Yeah, one thing I've always heard, if you can hit, you will play. That's one of the truest baseball adages. If you can hit, they're going to find a spot for you. So Matt Bacon really kind of holding down that Granada Hills lineup. You saw him hit an absolute bomb. The kid was always a threat no matter where he was. Guys didn't really want to pitch to him, so Matt Bacon, glad we found a spot for him. He's in right field.
And then out in center, probably my number 2 pick for City Section Player of the Year, 2 or 3, Andrew Olivas. We'll get to maybe who the other 2 was in a second, but Andrew Olivas from Kennedy. We know Eric Sondheimer thinks he's the best hitter in the City Section. And
not a bad choice.
He's got a fantastic resume. For Kennedy in their City Section playoff game against their Open Division playoff game against Birmingham, he was hitting all over the place, and that was the team that ended up winning. He was the one player I thought that they were really afraid of, and he's just been great all year.
Yeah, one thing I really like to watch Olivas hit, he looks angry. Looks like he wants to punish that baseball. Really patient hitter from the left side. I really enjoyed watching him hit a home run against Palisades in that open first round of the Open Division playoffs. So Olivas, I think playing for Kennedy maybe didn't get the attention that some of these other guys did, but he was one heck of a hitter. Really kind of paced that lineup there for the Cougars and played a really good defensive center field. I mean, sometimes you think for center fielders, you think really small guys, real speedy guys run around the field, but Olivas was one of the bigger hitters in the City Section and really locked down with just really good routes. Really smart, knowledgeable defender out there in center field. So yeah, kudos to him. Heck of a season.
And then in left field, the first El Camino Real Conquistador on our list, it's Cole Kitchen, a guy who's been great all year.
Yeah, I saw him against West Ranch, and I thought this guy's going to be
early on
one of the best hitters we're going to see all season long, and didn't disappoint. I watched him launch a home run here this season, and Kitchen played some center, he played some left, but he's also only a junior. I'm excited to see him play in his senior season. He's committed to play baseball at the next level, so when you get those kind of guys, you always want to give them a shout-out. So Kitchen, a fantastic kid, a fantastic hitter, and I think he's going to be hitting some more home runs out there in Woodland Hills.
And then at the DH spot, we have Benji Taylor from Palisades. He was probably the best remaining hitter out of anyone we could have selected.
Yeah, batting average over 500. He was the Western League MVP, and I think that's kind of where he got the edge over Daniel Krasnick. Krasnick was a really good kid and a really good hitter. We wanted to shout him out, but when it came down to picking one guy for that final spot, the Western League MVP was Benji Taylor, so we're giving Taylor the nod. Fantastic behind the plate as well, really kind of leading the Dolphins in every offensive category, and just a great kid. I really enjoyed talking to him. He was battling through injury there at the round against Kennedy, dealing with some knee issues, but you couldn't tell it. He was still swinging his heart out, so shout out to Benji Taylor. Fantastic year.
Looking at the pitchers now, so our Cy Young Award winner, we talked about it off the top. It's Brian Golnick from El Camino Real. In a section that had a lot of really, really good pitchers, I think he was at the top.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody pitch better than he did. I saw some guys pitch as well in flashes, but when I saw Brian Golnick, when he took the ball, I knew what I was going to get. I knew I was going to get 6 or 7 innings, a run, maybe 2, sometimes none. He was going to strike out 3 or 4, but he was really going to limit the damage. He was going to walk next to nobody, wasn't going to make a ton of mistakes. He was going to stay around the plate, but be pretty much untouchable. And Golnick, as the season wore on, I mean, he just kept taking the ball. And every start we saw, it seemed like he just got better. We saw him pitch really well against Taft towards the end of the year, and then he pitched really well in the semifinal game, which was huge to push them towards the finals against Cleveland. So Golnick, I mean, really a gutsy effort all season long, and I'm glad he's our Cy Young.
And then on the bench, we got a couple of other pitchers. First, Nick Matsumoto from Verdugo Hills, so instrumental in their Division I championship. What a year he had, and he couldn't even pitch in the title game, but he certainly got them there.
Yeah, Matsumoto's also a DH and a second baseman, can handle the bat a little bit, but the way that he helped out his team was he took the ball and he dominated. When they needed a big start out of him, he threw a complete game. He limited the opposing offense to 1 run, maybe no runs. So Matsumoto, all like we said before with Roca, you can't hold the team against him, you can't hold the competition against him. You want to look at individual performances. Matsumoto, heck of a year.
At Cleveland, Brian Andrade, the pitcher, he makes the bench for us as well. Cleveland, what a great year they've had, despite not really having some players where you'd say, oh, okay, so that's why they're doing so well. Andrade was great for them this year, but they were just a great group of really, really good players, and I'm excited to see what they do next year because they return a lot of guys.
Yeah, a little bit of a teaser. We're going to have a lot of Cleveland guys over there on our futures team.
Just because they're so young.
They're so young. A lot of sophomores, a lot of good appearances we saw out of them. A couple guys we're going to shout out. But Brian Andrade for Cleveland, he was the #1 guy. He took the ball against El Camino, and facing off against Brian Golnick, you know you're going to have to bring your best stuff, and I thought he really did. Gave up a couple of runs, maybe wasn't perfect, but you can't expect perfection. You just got to give everything you've got. I was impressed with just kind of seeing how he guts things out, goes through it. I mean, a tough lineup like Elko, it's not a cakewalk. And for Brian Andrade to pitch really well all season long with a young team, he was one of those senior leaders. Big shout out to him.
2 other players on the bench, a couple shortstops. First, Josiah Morrissey from Venice. He's a kid who has a world of potential as well. Playing for that Cubs team, who I know you've tweeted out, if you're on that team, you're good.
It's true.
He was a joy to watch all season. I'm excited to see what the future holds with him.
Yeah, good kid, funny kid. I hope the best for him. I mean, he was a joy to watch over there at shortstop. Also has a really live arm and a really good fastball. Curious to see kind of how he develops, because here comes his senior year. Chances are he'll start to lean towards one thing more than the other. He's probably still going to pitch every few days. He's going to play shortstop. But the kid's got a real quick bat, smooth, fluid swing from the left side. I mean, the Cubs are getting a good one. Don Moriarty knows how to pick him. So, Josiah, fun covering you, and I look forward to the future.
And then last, out of left field, they might say, although it's a shortstop, Joseph Padilla from Franklin High. Alex, why does he make this list?
Well, Padilla is a senior captain over there at Franklin, and he had an absolute monster season. A batting average over 500. He slugged close to 1,000. The kid was a fantastic player. And you want to shout out some of these players. We keep harping on individual performances. Well, Padilla, you couldn't really have a better individual season than he did, so I wanted to shout out a kid from a program that we didn't individually see by ourselves, but that I think really deserves a little bit of love, a little bit of shout out. And so Joseph Padilla there at Franklin, you get a shout out from us.
So there's the All-City Section baseball team. Apologies if we left off some people you thought should have made it, but that's the way it goes sometimes. I remember in basketball, we left off a guy who maybe should have been on the list, and we still hear about it from this day. That happens. That's kind of the name of the game, though, with these lists. You can't pick everyone.
No, and we picked these guys based on what we saw. I mean, we covered a lot of kids, and we kind of genuinely started to like the guys that we covered. We liked the families, the parents, the schools. You know, you start to build a relationship, but we tried to be unbiased. We tried to look at this and say, okay, who are the best players we saw at each position? I know we talked about some of the slights at the catcher position just because it was so full. There weren't enough spots to include everybody. So, yeah, I think we got it right. You know, it was tough. We had to leave a couple guys off, but that doesn't mean that you're not a good player. I just think for, like you say, this is pretty well representative of all the guys we thought we saw were the best, and I'm confident with it.
I agree. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, we're going to drop that futures team as well as our final top 10 in the next few days, so look out for that. For Alex Garr, I am Connor Morissette. We'll see you next time.